I'm Claire. I was 32 when I sat alone in our living room, the clock ticking past midnight. I held a photo from our wedding day, my fingers tracing the edges. James and I were smiling, his arm around my waist, our faces lit by the summer sun. We looked so happy, so sure. But that night I cried. Not because he was gone. He was asleep upstairs, his familiar snores echoing through the house. I cried because, after 10 years of marriage, I realized I never truly knew him. The man I vowed to love forever felt like a stranger. And that truth broke my heart. I met James in college, at a crowded party on a chilly October night. He stood by the fireplace, his laugh cutting through the noise. He had this easy charm, a way of making you feel seen. I was shy, sipping my drink in the corner, but he walked over, offered me a smile, and asked my name. We talked for hours about music, books, our dreams. By the end of the night, I knew I wanted to see him again. We dated for 2 years, each moment feeling like a page from a love story. We got married at 22, young and certain, in a small church with roses lining the aisle. We moved into a house in Portland, a cozy place with a tiny garden where I planted daisies. Life felt perfect, like we'd cracked the code to happiness. Those early years were golden. I taught 3rd grade, coming home with stories about my students' antics. James worked as an accountant, his desk always neat, his ties pressed. We had routines that felt sacred. Coffee in the morning, his hand brushing mine as we passed the sugar. Dinners at our wobbly kitchen table, where we'd laugh over burnt potatoes. Movie nights on Fridays, curled up under a blanket. I'd talk about my day, my hopes, my silly ideas. I want to write a book someday, I'd say, my voice bright. He'd nod, his eyes crinkling. That's great, Claire. You'll do it. His words were kind, but his gaze often drifted, like he was looking past me. I didn't see it then. I was too wrapped up in our life, in the idea of us as a perfect team. I remember our first anniversary. I planned a surprise dinner, string lights in the backyard, his favorite steak on the grill. He came home late, apologizing, saying work ran over. I brushed it off, lit the candles, and we ate under the stars. He smiled, thanked me, but his mind seemed elsewhere. I thought it was just a long day. I didn't question it. I didn't want to. I wanted to believe we were untouchable, that our love was enough to carry us through anything. By our 5th year, the cracks started to show. James came home later and later, his excuses piling up. Work's crazy, he'd say, loosening his tie. I'd ask about his day, hoping for a glimpse of him. Same old stuff, he'd mutter, already reaching for the remote. I'd sit across from him, picking at my food, waiting for more. But the silence grew, heavy and thick, like a fog I couldn't clear. I felt alone, even with him right there. His presence more like a shadow than a partner. I told myself it was normal. Marriages ebb and flow, don't they? Every couple hits a rough patch. I read articles, talked to friends, convinced myself we'd get through it. But the loneliness gnawed at me. I'd lie awake at night, the bed feeling too big, his breathing steady beside me. I'd replay our early days, wondering where they went. Was it me? Was I boring? Too needy? I tried to fix it, to bring us back. I plan date nights, dinners at new restaurants, walks by the river. I cooked his favorite meals, the kitchen smelling of garlic and herbs. I'd ask him to talk, my voice soft, almost pleading. Is everything okay? I'd say, searching his face. He'd smile, kiss my forehead, his lips cool. I'm fine, Claire. Don't worry. But his smiles were tight, his answers short, like doors slamming shut. I'd nod, swallow my questions, and turn away, my heart sinking deeper. I started noticing things. His phone was always face down, his passcode changed. He'd take calls outside, his voice low, the words muffled by the wind. I'd ask who it was, casual, trying not to sound suspicious. Just work, he'd say, his eyes avoiding mine. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust the man I married. But doubt crept in, slow and persistent, like a leak I couldn't plug. I hated myself for it, for questioning him, for letting fear take root. But it was there, growing, and I couldn't shake it. One night, everything broke open. He left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered, the screen lighting up in the dark. It buzzed, and I glanced at it, not expecting anything. A message appeared. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. No name, just a number I didn't know. My stomach twisted, sharp and cold. I stood there, frozen, the phone glowing like a warning. My hands shook as I picked it up, my thumb hovering over the screen. I didn't open it. I couldn't. The thought of what I might find terrified me. I set the phone down, my breath shallow, and waited for him to come back. He walked into the kitchen, towel around his neck, hair damp. He saw the phone, then me, and his face changed, just for a second, but I caught it. Everything okay? He asked, his voice too casual. I nodded, my throat tight, and turned away. I didn't trust myself to speak. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind raced, a storm of questions. Who was it? Was he cheating? Was our marriage a lie? I pictured another woman, someone brighter, funnier, someone who made him smile the way he used to. I looked at him sleeping, his face peaceful, and felt like a stranger lay beside me. The man I loved, the man I'd built a life with, felt like someone I'd never met. The next morning, I couldn't keep it in. We sat at the breakfast table, coffee steaming between us. I set the phone down, deliberate, my hands trembling. Who's texting you? I asked, my voice low but sharp. He froze, his spoon clinking against the bowl. Then he laughed, too loud, too forced. It's just a coworker, Claire. Relax. But his eyes darted to the side, and I knew he was lying. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. Show me. He sighed, heavy, like I was the problem. He grabbed the phone and walked out, the door slamming behind him. I sat there, the silence deafening, my coffee untouched. The air felt thick, like I couldn't breathe. That week was a blur of pain. We barely spoke. He stayed out late, his excuses flimsy, meetings, traffic, a broken car. I moved through the house like a ghost, cooking meals he didn't eat, folding clothes he didn't wear. I checked his phone when he slept, hating the person I'd become. No more texts, but I found emails, vague, friendly, from someone named L. They talked about work, then life. Small things that felt too intimate. Missed you at lunch, one said. My heart sank, heavy as stone. I didn't know what to do. Leave? Confront him? I loved him, but I didn't know who he was anymore. Our marriage felt like a house I didn't recognize, every room unfamiliar. I started questioning everything. Had he always been this way? Had I missed the signs? I thought back to our early days. His easy smiles, the way he'd hold my hand. Were those lies too? I looked at our wedding photo, framed on the mantel, and felt a pang. We looked so happy, so sure. But now, I wondered if I'd ever known him at all. I'd built a life with a man whose heart I couldn't reach, and that truth was suffocating. I cried in the shower, the water drowning my sobs, so he wouldn't hear. I cried in the car, parked in an empty lot, my hands gripping the wheel. I cried because I loved him, but I was losing him, and I didn't know how to stop it. One night, I reached my limit. I packed a bag, jeans, a sweater, my toothbrush. I was done. I couldn't live with the lies, the silence, the doubt. But before I left, I sat at the kitchen table, a pen in my hand. I wrote him a letter, the words spilling out. James, I thought we were forever. I thought I knew you, but I don't. Your secrets are breaking me. If you want this to work, tell me the truth. I can't live with half of you. I folded the paper, left it by the coffee maker, and drove to my friend's house. I collapsed on her couch, my body shaking, my tears soaking the cushions. I wondered if I'd ever feel like myself again, if I'd ever trust anyone again. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was James. Claire, come home. Please. His voice cracked, raw, like he'd been crying. I hesitated, my heart torn. Part of me wanted to run, to leave it all behind. But another part, the part that still loved him, needed to know. I drove back, the road blurring through my tears. When I walked in, he was at the kitchen table, my letter in his hand, its edges worn. I'm sorry, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I haven't cheated, but I've been hiding things. He looked broken, his shoulders slumped, his eyes red. I sat down, my pulse racing, and waited. He told me everything, his words slow, like they hurt to say. Elle was Lisa, a coworker. They'd grown close over months, talking about work, then life, movies, music, their childhoods. It wasn't physical, but it was emotional, a connection he hadn't felt with me in years. He said he felt lost, like he didn't know how to reach me anymore. He'd been battling depression since his father died, hiding it because he thought strength meant silence. He didn't want to burden me, didn't want me to see him weak. He'd push me away, thinking it would protect me, but it only built a wall. I listened, my chest tight, my eyes burning. I saw him, not just as my husband, but as James, a man carrying a weight I'd never noticed, a man drowning in his own silence. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was angry, furious that he'd turned to someone else, that he'd let me feel so alone. Part of me was heartbroken, seeing his pain, his fear. I took a breath, my voice shaky. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. I'm your wife. I'm supposed to carry this with you. He looked down, his hands trembling. I didn't know how, he said. I thought you'd leave if you saw me like this. His honesty cut me, sharp and deep. I realized I'd been hiding too, hiding my hurt, my doubts, pretending everything was fine. We'd both built that wall, brick by brick. We talked all night, the kitchen lit by a single lamp. I told him how his silence made me feel invisible, how I'd spent years chasing a version of him I thought I knew. He told me how he'd felt trapped, afraid to show his cracks, afraid to lose me. We cried, our tears mixing on the table. We yelled, our voices raw, airing years of unspoken pain. Then we laughed, a shaky, broken sound, at how messy it all was. We didn't fix everything that night, but we tore down the lies, laid our truths bare, and promised to try. It wasn't a cure, but it was a beginning. The months that followed were hard, like walking through a storm. We went to therapy, sat in a small office with a kind woman who asked hard questions. Some sessions, we argued, our words sharp, our wounds fresh. Others, we held hands, finding pieces of the love we'd lost. I learned to speak up, to say what I needed without fear. He learned to share his darkness, to let me see his pain. It wasn't easy. There were days I wanted to give up, days I doubted we'd make it. But we kept going, step by step, rebuilding something new. One evening, months later, we sat on the couch, the house quiet. No TV, no phones, just us. He held my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. I'm glad we didn't give up, he said, his voice soft. I looked at him, his face familiar but different, like seeing him for the first time. I squeezed his hand, my throat tight. Me too, I said. For the first time in years, I felt like I knew him. Not the man I'd imagined, but the man he was, flaws and all. It wasn't the love we'd started with. It was deeper, stronger, forged in truth. Now, our marriage isn't a fairy tale. We still stumble, still fumble for words. Some days, we argue over small things, dishes, bills, who forgot to lock the door. But we talk. We listen. He tells me about his bad days, the ones where the world feels heavy. I tell him about my dreams, my fears, the book I'm still trying to write. We're not perfect, but we're real. I loved him for years, but I never knew him. Now I'm learning who he is, and that's enough. Looking back, I see it all so clearly. Love isn't just vows or candlelit dinners. It's showing up, even when it's messy. It's seeing someone's scars and choosing to stay. I spent years waiting for James to be the man I thought I married, the one who'd make everything easy. But love doesn't work that way. It's meeting the person in front of you, not the one you dreamed up. It's asking the hard questions, hearing the painful answers, and still reaching for their hand. I cried for James because I thought I'd lost him. But he was there, waiting for me to see him, just as I was waiting for him. Don't wait for love to be perfect. Don't wait for your partner to say the right thing or fix it all. Reach out, even when it scares you. Ask what's wrong, even when you're afraid of the answer. Listen even when it hurts. Because one day, you might look at the person you love and realize they're a stranger, and you had every chance to know them. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone you love? I'd love to hear your story.